Thank you so much for having me. I'm crazy excited to be on your Thing Finding interview series.
Mm-mm. What's your thing?
My thing now, we can go in like technical titles. We can
Yeah.
go like what the titles are about. The technical titles are I'm a life coach, speaker, and writer. But I really feel like working with fear um, in my own life, and then how that translates to what shows up in my writing and my coaching and my speaking, and specifically how we just really beautifully practice courage is my vocation. It's my calling. It's that thing that I get like really jazzed about.
How are you finding, there's a way in which you're still landing. How from here to there? What was your process?
I love that you say there's a way in which you're still landing, because I think that especially in our more materialistically oriented culture, we tend to think there's a place over there that we're supposed to land.
Mm.
And part of my quote unquote landing process, you could say, was the discovery that there is no landing. That the suffering is about in the world, really, and in one's personal life, is about thinking that there's a place to land, that there's this thing out there, there's this day out there where if I just do enough work, I won't be afraid. And so one of the things I talk about on my website and in my work is that the practice of courage is about feeling afraid, because you're never going to get out of that part as long as you're a human being trying new things, diving in anyway, because what would you want to do otherwise? Stay stuck? Like, that isn't a recipe for fully alive living for most people. And then transforming, because that's always what happens whenever we choose to dive into something, even though fear is along for the ride. And the transformation doesn't necessarily look like always that the heavens part and life is perfect there ever after. Actually, that 1 inch of freedom is a really valuable inch to have gained, and that we always have some kind of transformation just by the process of saying, this thing scared me, this thing that I wanted, and I decided to go for it anyway. And for a long time, it was a sort of dysfunctional thing, right? Because it was like white knuckling my way through fear.
Yeah.
And what that has blossomed into, and what I've transformed, is the realization that I didn't need to white knuckle or defend against, that this was actually something that I could flow with and I could be with. And that in fact it was the essence of my power to say, I can be with this. I can be totally afraid, and it doesn't make me weak. It actually makes me incredibly on my edge to be with this fear that's coming up for me. I actually really believe that one of the most powerful choices I can make when I'm afraid is to lay down on my bed and just cry it out. That is actually a conscious choice to work with fear right there. I don't have to go get a business license or hang out my shingle or do all the big things like start a blog that feels so scary if I wanted to start a business. So in 2011, I had gotten to a point in my business where a lot of coaches were emailing me and saying, okay, Kate, how are you doing this? How are you getting the guest posts booked? And how are you booking interviews with best-selling authors like Sark, or TED Talk researchers like Brene Brown? And how are you doing the marketing thing and not going crazy? And just all these questions were coming up. And so I said, well, I'm going to create a program for you to I'm just teach you everything I need to know. And along the way, I'm going to interview other coaches who are amazing and get their wisdom too, especially because, we're all coming from different perspectives. And, somebody probably wants the business coaching perspective of Tara Gentile if they're a business coach. They might want the creative coaching perspective of Jamie Ridler if they're a creativity coach. So I interviewed 12 coaches and counselors and put that out. And then now in the past year, it's like things change. Like Facebook has changed in the past year. Technology has changed in the past year. Pinterest has become big in the past year. And so basically I'm relaunching the coaching blueprint. I shouldn't even say relaunch, I'm updating the coaching blueprint, adding more content, more interviews with like Leonie Dawson, who's a rock star who made 100 grand in 3 months. And I'm like, I want to talk to a coach who knows how to do that, because I want to know how to do that. And so it's going to be live on October 4th, 2012, and I'm completely and totally excited.
I'm
Yay!
completely and totally excited for you too. What fears, obstacles, showed up as you're creating this?
I learned that when you launch something, more is going to come up than you ever think is going to come up. So that's something I'm going to be talking about in like the Coaching Blueprint 2.0. So much stuff came up in the last launch, like last minute things people were requesting, suddenly remembering at 10:30 at night, just as I was about to nod off to sleep, oh my God, I didn't get that email to that person. And I have really set an intention for myself with this launch that I'm going to be, working out, and it would be getting my salad, and it would be making my green smoothie in the morning, and drinking lots of water, and that my practice of courage is going to be really being attuned to and releasing the thought that if it's not done in a certain way, it's wrong or won't be successful, or it's bad, all of that. So really like where's the priority? That's the takeaway for when you take on a massive project and it's scary and shit's coming up. Is it worth doing if you drive yourself into the ground? And I don't think it's worth doing if you drive yourself into the ground.
Is there anything that you want viewers who are in the process of looking for their things, maybe they feel like they're in it, it's not quite fitting, but they're in a process. Is there anything that you have, any questions or signposts that you'd love for them to see?
So what I would say is really start to notice the sensations in your body. Justifications create a lot of mediocrity. And so, and I don't mean mediocrity in the way that people typically bandy about the term, like, don't be mediocre, be better than that. I mean, like, mediocrity as in things that don't really rise you to your truest calling, like your purpose, like really rise you to that place. Mm-hmm. And so, when you're doing too much up here, the justifications can convince you to go a certain direction. But if you feel, when I sit down to write something for the Coaching Blueprint, or when I was sitting down to write something for the Courageous Living program, or when I'm sitting down to write for my blog, it's like, if I'm sitting down and I'm going, 10 ways to practice courage, okay, well, what's one way? And it's thinking, it's just not going to be a successful post. But when I have that thought, when I run across an amazing quote and I think, oh, that's a great idea, and I scribble it down, I feel it in my body, I feel it down here, I feel it everywhere. And the more you can cultivate trusting that feeling, the more you're going to really find yourself on your path, not somebody else's path, not the path that you think you should be on.